I'm going to start the stream and the recording, and we'll be going live on the radio in about 30 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and share this video, and we'll get started. KLK 102.5 FM. Good afternoon to you on your Friday. It's September 20th, 2024. This is our special series of political interviews, and joining us in the studio today is David McAvoy. He is the Democratic nominee for the Arkansas House of Representatives, District 32, which pretty much covers just about all of Jonesboro. And of course, got to start with the disclaimer: KLK and the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. We do not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate for office. We provide these interviews for informational purposes, but as always, we are going to encourage you to exercise your right to vote. Voter registration deadline is Monday, October 7th. Early voting starts Monday, October 21st. Early voting ends Monday, November 4th. And election day is Tuesday, November 5th. But don't wait. Go ahead and get registered and get to the polls as soon as you can. So with that being said, David, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me, Legansy.
All right. So as always with these interviews, we'll start off with you just kind of introducing yourself and your background and why you decided to run for this position.
Okay.
Kind of come just a little bit hair close to the mic.
How's that? Right.
Yeah, that's better.
All right, there we go. So, I've lived in Jonesboro for almost 20 years now. I'm originally from the little town of Wynn.
Also known as Wee Town.
We called it the city with a smile growing up.
I remember seeing that sign on the railroad track overpass.
Yeah. But anyway, when I was growing up in Wynn, we moved around a lot, didn't have much. I remember one time where went to the refrigerator when I was probably in about my freshman year of high school or so. And all that was in there for dinner was a single plate of leftovers and a bottle of ketchup for a family of 5. So, all that to say that we got through that as a family. I got through that as an individual and can be here doing this today because I benefited from a good public school system. I had teachers who kept after me and a high school librarian who made sure I got my first scholarship. And we had better economic protections for struggling families back then. So the things that helped me make something of myself and get to where I am here today, that helped me get to ASU, get my college degree, and be more successful than the life I knew growing up, are all under attack in the state of Arkansas today right now. Our public school system's under attack. The economy is not working for regular Arkansans, and that's because policy is not being made with them in mind. And we have a government that is working for, frankly, the people who can buy it. And if we continue on this road, the state is going to go in a bad direction. We're going in a bad direction now. It's going to get worse. So that's why I'm running, to try to make a difference, because Arkansas has been better before. This community has done a lot to me. I'm going to try to give back because we can be even better in the future.
Okay, and looking on your website, which is davidforarkansas.com, and at the very top it says, bring hope back to Arkansas. Yeah. So that's kind of been like the entire theme of your campaign. So kind of go a little bit more in depth into what does that specifically mean as far as your campaign, bring hope back to Arkansas.
Sure. So think about it. 9 times out of 10, when you talk to a young person in the state of Arkansas, someone in high school or in college, a lot of times they're looking outside the state for their future because they don't think they're going to have the opportunities here that they could have elsewhere. You talk to older people who are worried about how their communities are deteriorating, who've seen small towns wither and die, who've seen things get worse. And people are losing hope in this state. You hear people say it's never going to change. But that's not true. It's been better in Arkansas. We had a time in Arkansas In the 1970s, we invested in community colleges. They brought kindergarten to Arkansas. They built up our public parks. Arkansas was thriving. I benefited from a public school. Our legislators now are really hard on our public school system, but most of us, have to thank our public schools for where we are today, myself included, because we invested in them. So when I'm talking about bringing hope back to Arkansas, I'm talking about getting back to the things that work, making this state work for regular people again. Making sure that people have something to look forward to in this state.
Okay. And of course, you keep talking about public schools. It's something that you are very passionate about. And of course, on other interviews and debates, you have been vocal about your stance on education, especially your opposition to the LEARNS Act. So let's kind of go a little bit more in depth with that.
Well, so LEARNS was just a terrible, terrible piece of legislation. And they took a bunch of bad ideas from around the country, copied and pasted them into one bill, and shoved it down our throats. And we could be here all day talking about the different provisions of that. I'll go with the core of it for the moment and elaborate on anything I need to. But the voucher provision, where you take public money and you give it to people to spend in private schools or homeschooling, that sort of thing. Look at how this is working around the country in other states where it's been tried. Indiana, Arizona, so on and so forth. Those states, what happens is the money that's being spent in the private schools end up going mostly to the wealthiest families that could already afford to send their kids there, because the private schools tuition goes up. And so everyone who was counting on that voucher, if they wanted to take their kid to a private school, is then screened out because they can't cover the rest of the costs. And then those states end up facing fiscal crises because this becomes a very expensive subsidy for the wealthiest people. At the same time, you have folks taking that voucher for homeschool, and I have nothing against homeschooling a child if that's the best thing for them, but there has to be some accountability here. Because in those states, what we've seen is people taking that voucher and spending it on everything from expensive headsets, saying we need this for the lesson plan, onto a trip to Disney World for a quote-unquote field trip. So this is what's coming down the pipe in Arkansas. And we've got to change tracks. It makes no sense to create a program that provides an education for the wealthiest 5% while leaving 95% of our kids struggling in increasingly underfunded public schools. What makes more sense is to invest in our public education system so that 100% of children benefit. When Mike Beebe was governor, and as recently as 2013, Arkansas schools were in the top 5 in quality in the country. And what happened after that? When the legislature changed hands, when we got a new governor, we ended up seeing a change in priorities. Instead of investing money in public schools, they started spending money on big tax giveaways for people that already had plenty, with the capital gains tax cut, with the income tax cut. And so anything that has happened in our public schools since that point, you can attribute to that change in priorities. So I want to get us back to what works. I want us to fund our public school system, and I want us to make sure that every child in the state of Arkansas has the same opportunities and benefits that I had growing up.
So if you get elected, what steps will you take to bring this to fruition? Because obviously, depending on the composition of the legislature, it may not just be that easy to make changes.
Sure. So, you start by telling the truth. And the truth is the LEARNS Act is going to set us up for some serious problems. It's got to go. If not all at once, then piece by piece. There might be a little bit of window dressing in it we can preserve, but most of it's got to go. And I think what you're going to see is, has the fiscal reality of this sets in, has the voucher program in particular, and the rest of Learns causes serious budget problems in the state, I think we're going to have to see, or we're going to end up seeing people start facing reality because it's going to be unavoidable. But until that point, I'm happy to just speak the truth until we get there.
Okay, and I'm looking on your website. Once again, it is davidforarkansas.com, and I'm looking under the Issues tab. And a couple other major talking points you have is build an economy that works for all Arkansans and fight corruption in government. So we'll kind of go to build an economy that works for all Arkansans. So if you get elected, what do you plan to do to help improve the economy for Arkansans?
Okay, so let's start with where we're at now. Because right now, about the only economic policies we really see prioritized in the state of Arkansas are big tax giveaways to big businesses and to people who already have quite a lot. What I'd like to see us do is, it's kind of like working an economy is kind of like growing a garden. You got to water the roots. You got to till the soil. You grow an economy from the ground up because in America, we've seen throughout our history, regular people are the engine of our economic growth. When regular people do well, everybody does well in this country. So my focus on this is, one, we have an unfair tax code that it's regressive. It falls heavily on people who are just trying to make ends meet and get by. Instead of giving away all this money to the people at the top, let's fix that. Let's fix the regressive nature of our tax code and give regular folks a little bit of a break. Let's make sure that we're investing instead of in big businesses that are doing well, and we want them to do well, but instead of investing in them with the long list of, guess what you could call corporate welfare, tax subsidies, tax giveaways for them that our state hands out. Let's start helping small businesses start up and succeed. Walmart started as a small business in the state of Arkansas, famously, and it took off to become one of the largest companies in the world. There is someone out there who deserves that exact same chance. But because we're not supporting small businesses like we used to, the playing field has been shifted. So that is going to be my focus, shifting the priorities of the state to helping regular folks so that all of us are better off.
Okay, and they actually kind of transition to the next point, which is fight corruption in government. This is something that you've spoken about, especially when it comes to issues of FOIA.
Yes. Okay, so we could spend a lot of time on this. So
we got about 10 minutes left. So
oh dear. For those that don't know, the Freedom of Information Act in the state of Arkansas has been cut because what happened, our current governor got caught in a series of scandals. She got mad. She wanted to cover that up. So she rolled out a big list of changes she wanted to make to the Freedom of Information Act. Not all of those got through. But what did get through is now if she's going somewhere, we don't have the same transparency to tell us where she went, who was riding with her on the plane. Was it a lobbyist or what have you? And how was it paid for? Did she use the state plane inappropriately? Did she use public funds inappropriately? And as we've seen from the myriad of things this governor has done, from the Super Bowl trip to just flying around on the state police plane from Little Rock to Jonesboro, this is something that this is an administration that really needs some public supervision. And really, the public has the right to know what goes on in our government. So I'm going to fight to protect FOIA. But the corruption problem in Arkansas is a lot bigger than the governor. We've seen a lot of legislators over the years who've gone to jail. We've seen, you can even get further from, not just what is explicitly illegal, but you could also look just at how our political system works. That's not just an Arkansas problem, but our campaign finance system, our lobbying system, all create a politics and a government that is skewed more towards people who have the ability to make big contributions, who can afford well-funded lobbying operations. And so the interest of regular people are not necessarily being heard. So that's corruption as well, even if it's perfectly legal. So, and I'd encourage people to go to my website at davidforarkansas.com, because I have a plan to fight corruption on there. It's about 9 different points. And, it lists everything from, making sure that politicians in the state of Arkansas who commit crimes lose their pensions, on to reforming the purchasing in state government and our campaign finance system, and creating a stronger ethics commission in the state. All this to reform government and get it working for ordinary people again.
All right, so David, one thing that you have definitely been known for throughout this campaign is your zeal and willingness to literally knock on every single door that you can get on. How many doors have you knocked? Like 10,000 by now?
No, not quite that many. It's the last time we checked, it was somewhere between 2,600 and 3,000. I'm not sure.
Still exactly a pretty big number. So, kind of tell a little bit about some of the things you've heard as you've engaged in some of these door knocking activities.
Sure, and I've talked to people across the political spectrum, people of every walk of life, and folks have different concerns. Some people are more inclined to vote towards me for me than other people are, of course. But by and large, I think most people just want someone that cares about them in the state legislature. And I've met just some really wonderful people, had some great conversations, and some of them really stick with you. I'll tell you, the ones that have gotten the most to me are a couple of older people who I met who were telling me that they were having trouble just keeping food on the table through the month, having enough to eat. And Arkansas is the #1 food insecure state in the entire country. That's a sign that our priorities in state government right now are way off what they need to be. So, I'm going to take those stories I've heard. I'm going to take those concerns that have been raised with me, and I'm going to take them to the state legislature. And I'm going to try my best to get something done for people who don't have a lobbyist, for people who can't cut a 4-figure check to a politician, because that's what government's supposed to be about. It's of, by, and for the people. And it's high time we got back to that.
Okay. And if you do get elected, what is the first thing you're going to focus on if you are able to get to the legislature?
Sure. I think the first thing that I'm going to focus on, and one of the big things, not the only thing, but one of the big things that I hope to work for through the entire time that I'm there, is going to be working on reforming the way we do lobbying and campaign finance, because so many of our problems go back to who's influencing politicians with money and how. Now, being a freshman legislator, I'm going to start small. And there's pieces of the corruption proposals that I rolled out, or anti-corruption proposals, that I think I can start with, like addressing the fact that if someone in our state government goes to jail for bribery or some other improper action, short of killing someone, they don't lose their pension. And so we're still paying for that. So that may be one of the first pieces of legislation I put forward, at least as I'm thinking now. But I'm also going to focus on the issues of Jonesboro, what I can bring home to this district, because we don't have someone fighting for us the way folks in Little Rock and Northwest Arkansas are doing. And I'm going to push for real changes in our state government from every angle. And, I won't be there forever. I don't know how long I'll be there. It kind of depends on the goodwill of the people of Jonesboro. But as long as I'm in the legislature. I'm going to be fighting for regular folks.
All right. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to support you, donate to you, volunteer, or they just want to just know more, go more if questions, or they may not feel comfortable calling in or posting on Facebook, but would just rather privately speak to you? How can people get in touch with you?
Sure. So, of course, there is my website, davidforarkansas.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Twitter or whatever it's called now.
X.
That. So on and so forth.
All right. So, any final comments? Anything else that you'd like to say to the listeners and viewers out there?
I appreciate y'all tuning in. And early voting starts October 21st. You have until October 7th to get registered if you're not. And then the election day is November 5th, and I'd appreciate
Give me 1 minute.
Consideration.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We've been speaking with David McAvoy, the Democratic nominee for Arkansas House District 32. And remember, KLK and the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, we do not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate for office, but we're going to always encourage you to exercise your right to vote. That's going to do it. You guys have a great and blessed weekend. This is KLK on 2.5 FM. All right. Let me run outside right quick. A UPS dude is waiting.
Am I okay taking that off?